There's a man going round, taking names. Oh, death is the man taking names. Oh, death is the man taking names. He has taken my sister's name and has left my heart in pain. Oh, death is the man taking names. Yes, death is the man taking names. Yes, death is the man taking names. He has taken my city's name and has left our hearts in pain. Yes, death is the man taking names. Not in Liverpool.
Very special song, a very, very special man, and a very, very good friend of mine for a long time. We have voices of many people speaking today, but of course, the people who bear the brunt of all, their voices really have to be the loudest. And we've got here today, Sarah Sheikh Prince.
Hello everyone. I'm going to be giving this poem that's in the perspective of a Palestinian child. I am a child of Palestine, except I'm no longer here. I was 10-year-old Rahaf and 2-year-old Yazan. I was 6-year-old Marwan and I was 5-year-old Bara. But I was my mum's first love and I was the apple of my father's eye. I was the baker's favourite visitor and I was my teacher's pride and joy. I was 11-year-old Ibrahim and 13-year-old Yahya. I was 6-year-old Amira and 12-year-old Hamza. I was my little brother's superhero. I was the laughter of the streets. I was the soul of the skies and I was Jerusalem's brightest flower. I was 5-year-old Zayd and 11-year-old Ammar. I was 4-year-old Adam and 3-year-old Muhammad. I was the birds that sang in the trees and I was the reason my grandma smiled and I was the warmth of the winter and I was the breeze on a summer's day. I was 8-year-old Maryam and 2-year-old Hud. I was 1-year-old Ibrahim and 6-year-old Amr. I was 9-year-old Bilal and 11-year-old Yusuf. I was 6-year-old Raman and 14-year-old Lina. I was 13-year-old Hamada and I was 16-year-old Bethna. I was 14-year-old Ahmed and 8-year-old Islam. I was 1-year-old Muhammad and 13-year-old Abdullah. I was 6-year-old Osama and 13-year-old Sahib. I was my country's tiny protector and a soldier on my land, but my strength scared the settler, so my life was cut short and put to an end. The names mentioned in this poem were real lives, real children, and an example of the real victims of the weapons that are sold in these armed fairs. Let's not allow our city to profit off of murder. Thank you.
anti-war movement. She helped to organise the largest demonstration in British history against the war in Iraq. Someone who's a convener, she was a founding member of the anti-war movement all those years ago in the build-up to the war in Afghanistan and Iraq. A really good friend of mine over many, many years. Please welcome Lindsay German. Thank you very, very much, Audrey, and thank you, Liverpool, for turning out in such great numbers today to oppose this arms fair. I have very, very happy memories of being in Liverpool and demonstrating over many years. There's just one I'd like to remind people of, many of you will have been on it, when Condoleezza Rice, who was the Secretary of State for George Bush, visited Liverpool and Blackburn on behalf of Jack Straw, who was then the Foreign Secretary. And we decided, the people of Liverpool decided, the Stop the War Coalition, that we would stop her from having the kind of visit that she wanted. And the one who's just introduced me, Audrey Wright, was, I think, the first person, when we saw her car arriving in Liverpool, was the first person to stand up and say, Condoleezza Rice, go home. And the next day, thousands of people turned out again, and then we went to Blackburn and we followed her every inch of the way that she was here in Britain. And we made the promise then that we will continue to oppose these wars on terror, and that is what we have been doing. And one of the things that is so disgusting about the holding of an arms fair in Liverpool is not just that it goes against the democratic wishes of the majority of people here, not just it goes against the kind of politics of the majority of people here, but it is a signal that we are going to have more and more of these wars, and they are going to result in more and more death and destruction. So we are standing up today, just as the people in London are standing up tomorrow against the arms fair there. We are standing up to say we are not prepared to put up with these merchants of death selling their weapons, taking them to countries where they use both for wars and for repression of the people of those countries. We are not prepared to do it. And this is particularly potent for two reasons. 11, where 3,000 people died in New York and Washington. We said on that day, the wars will not help the people who died. They will not help to end terrorism. They will make things worse. Come 20 years on and we've gone full circle. The Americans and the British have had to pull out of Afghanistan, and so they should have done. They should never have been there in the first place. But let's remember, 300,000 bombs have been dropped by the Americans alone in Afghanistan alone over the last 20 years. What an absolute disgrace, what a waste of human life, what a waste of money. And so we are saying the arms companies benefit from these wars. They're the people who get the money. When I look at the fact that they're cutting our pensions, when I look at the fact they're making us pay more national insurance, when I look at the fact that they're cutting universal credit for the poorest people in this country, I say, where is that money going? Well, a hell of a lot of it is going into the pockets of the arms manufacturers in this country and around the world. And this is about making us poorer and making the people of Afghanistan, Syria, Iraq, Libya, Yemen, all these places poorer as well. We have to stop it now. We have to say this is about profiting from the wars. It's about profiting from repression. It's about profiting from the fate of refugees, because the refugees are the people who are victims of war. And while the British government says it's going to let some in from Afghanistan, it won't provide the money to give them a decent life. It won't provide the money to do anything for them. It'll do what Priti Patel is doing and sending the refugees back to France. This government is a racist disgrace, and we should say so. And if Afghanistan and Iraq and Syria and Libya are not safe for the troops, if America and Britain had to withdraw from Afghanistan, why the hell should they be safe for Afghan people who've been returned to a special centering supply over the last few years? This is the kind of policy that we have to oppose. So thank you so much for coming today. Please stay involved. I would like to see this arms fair cancelled. If it isn't cancelled, I remember the people of Liverpool in 2003 and 2002 blocked the roads around this city centre in opposition to the war in Iraq. Let's do that again. If this arms fair, if they got the nerve to bring this arms fair here, and I say to the people who run the council here, make sure that you respect and reflect the ideas of the people who elected you, rather than the people who are making massive profits out of selling arms and out of death and destruction. So thank you very much for inviting me. Stop the War Coalition will do everything it can to support you in this fight and the many other fights that we have ahead. Solidarity to you, solidarity to people who are victims of these wars, and let's close this arms fair down. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Now, normally we will have the main speaker at the end of the event. And unfortunately, well, maybe not unfortunately, Jeremy has to leave to attend the Wigan Diggers Festival. And the reason why he's leaving to attend the Wigan Diggers Festival is to show solidarity in defence of the national president of the Bakers Union, Ian Hudson. Maybe Williams will know that Ian is being witch hunted like so many of the socialists in our party. Like me, like many of us in Liverpool, like Chris Williams who's here today. And I give a warm welcome to Chris for supporting our demonstration and our cause today. Thank you. Nice Pen Lunch, the amazing Pen Lunch. Over the shame of Starmer and his henchmen are actually witch hunted a man of his stature out of the Labour Party. It's contemptible. Okay, Storm and I'll get the message. I hope he gets the message too. So, all I have to say to introduce Jeremy, he needs no introduction. We must remind ourselves that he's the soul of the anti-war movement. He's the soul of the Labour movement. He's a man who lifted our hopes and our dreams. And those hopes and dreams are still here. And those hopes and dreams are still alive. So let's welcome the real leader of the opposition. Thank you. Thank you. Can I say to Liverpool, thank you for being here today, for your solidarity, your support for peace movements, for progressive causes all over the world, and this wonderful city of solidarity. You stood up for the victims of Hillsborough when the media condemned them. You stood up for the Liverpool dockers when others walked away. You stood up for the people of Palestine when others didn't want to know. You stood up against apartheid. You stood up on so many international and national causes. Liverpool is the city of solidarity. Thank you. And thank you too to those, Audrey and so many others that have organised today's event.
And I think we should say a special thank you to the Fire Brigades Union for keeping us safe, for looking after us, and providing us with a platform wherever we go on this wonderful club here. So it's for you, for you, for you, for you. And to all those who have spoken today, my great friend and comrade John McDonald, who spoke earlier, to Dan Carvey, who spoke earlier, and to Theo, who just sang just now, it's as if Paul Robeson was here. Paul Robeson, a man who was hunted in the United States, was subject to McCarthyite smears and attacks. His passport was removed by the US government. But Paul spent his life talking about the effects of slavery and the slave trade and racism in the United States, and in solidarity with miners in South Wales and in Scotland, with dock workers in Liverpool, with workers all over the United States as well as all over Europe. What a man, what a legacy. And I say this, that in studying that man and his legacy, I think we need to change a lot we do in education. I love Black History Month, it's a great idea, but our children should learn the history of slavery and the slave trade all the year round, and the history of colonialism and of liberation movements, and so that our children are brought up to understand that all communities, all faiths on this planet make their contribution to our history and to our learning. That, in the longer term, is the way to defeat racism in any form and the racist ideas that accompany it. So let's dedicate ourselves in this campaign on all those issues. I want to say thank you to all those in the faith communities that came together to condemn this arms fair. All those that have said it must be cancelled. Obviously, it shouldn't be held anywhere, and it certainly should never be held in the city of Liverpool any more than it should be held in London. Think of what this arms fair is about. Showcasing weapons of destruction, showcasing weapons of surveillance, of information, and of the ability to target particular places. And it all sounds great, it all sounds technical, it all sounds fun. You look at it on videos, you look at it on television, you look at it on your computer, and then you realise it kills people. Children in Gaza, children in Yemen, children in Somalia, children in Myanmar, children in so many places. All kinds of people turn up at these arms fairs to buy things. And they're sold through arms dealers. Those arms dealers have no compunction who they sell them to or what they do at the end of it. Indeed, they advertise their effectiveness. So if we're serious about peace and justice and human rights around the world, if we're serious about the rights of the people of Yemen, they don't sell weapons to Saudi Arabia who are going to use them against the people of Yemen. And the hypocrisy, and it is rank hypocrisy of ministers in the British government telling Dan, telling me, telling John, telling many, many others, it's okay, we're the biggest donors for the reconstruction of Yemen. I want to help the people of Yemen. I want our overseas aid to help the people of Yemen to deal with cholera, with water supply, with health conditions, with education, and all those things. But I don't want to be part of the problem that bombed and destroyed them in the first place. So, in that campaign, let us remember all of those things. And remember that wars are easy to start and hard to stop. 9/11 was a disastrous day. Those thousands that died in New York, in the World Trade Center, didn't deserve to die. It was horrendous, it was wrong, and it was terrible. Just as much as those 7,000 that were killed by General Pinochet after the coup on 9/11 1973. And so, after 9/11 in New York, George Bush gave himself total powers. Only one member of Congress voted against it. A wonderful, wonderful woman who represents Oakland in California, Barbara Lee, was the only one. She said in all countries she could not vote to start another war. And she was right. And we then voted, well, at least I didn't, but a lot of MPs did, that we would send our troops to Afghanistan. Here we are, all these years later. Thousands of Afghan people have died. Desperate refugees now trying to get out, and they should be allowed out, and they should be made welcome in this country, and they should be supported. Thousands of American troops died, 457 British troops died, and more than 1 million Afghans are refugees in neighbouring countries in other parts of the world. The war in Iraq, which we opposed, the 2 million of us that went to London that day to oppose it, said it won't solve the problems of Iraq, it will cause the wars and the terrorism and the refugee crisis of tomorrow. This refugee crisis the world faces, 70 million people are refugees, in part caused by the wars. They are people who deserve to live. They're people who want to make their contribution. So I'm ashamed when the British government on the one hand says it's welcoming Afghan refugees, good, if they were doing that, and then at the same time tries to push legislation through our parliament which makes it a criminal offence to save somebody's life in the English Channel and push them back rather than coming to our shores. The human instinct is to save life, not condemn those that bring about safety for others. And so, let us oppose this arms fair and the arms trade and develop an economy that works for all. An economy that provides the housing we need, the healthcare we need, the education we need, the ships that we need, the planes that we need, the cars that we need, the trains that we need, the skill, the brilliance, the engineering that's there. I want those skills used for peaceful purposes. I want us to develop an economy based on peace, on justice, on development, and on environmental sustainability. When they talk of security, the British government talks about the ability to arm ourselves and destroy others. I tell you this, just put this in the back of your mind. The firepower on one nuclear submarine is the equivalent of all of the bombs dropped in the Second World War by all parties in the Second World War. That is the human destructive power that we have. Security in the world is not the ability to kill others. Security, real security, is the ability to eat, for your children to be educated, to be healthcare available, to have clean water, to have clean air, and sustain our planet and deal with the environmental crisis that is affecting all of us. And so, the work we're doing, all of this, is about peace and justice and human rights. The message we're saying today in Liverpool is, let's turn the corner, turn the page, learn the lessons of the past, let humanity prevail, the arms fair be cancelled, and start the process to walk down that road to a more peaceful, more just world, where we respect each other and the human rights that goes with it, as this wonderful city of Liverpool has always done and always will do. Thank you, all of you, for being here today. Thank you, Corbyn. I just want to appeal to the crowd here to remember that the speakers who are speaking now, some of them have travelled to come here. They'll be making their short contributions, and I hope you'll stay and give them the respect for the contributions that they're going to make, because they're really valuable contributions.
on top of the other in Afghanistan at the time anyway. People like me went into the city centre of Liverpool desperate to know what to do. And together we founded the Merseyside Stop the War Coalition. We sent a train to London on the 15th of February. We had that many coaches booked, we couldn't book any more coaches. So we had to make money, and we had to then turn round and sign a cheque for about 14 grand to pay for the train. And we did that. And we were absolutely to the forefront of the anti-war movement. But I'll tell you who helped us with that. I'll tell you who helped us. It was the unions. And the union that was particularly helpful was the FBU. Let's get us here today. And I remember running into the unemployed centre, wondering how we were going to pay for this, how we were going to organise that. And just like today, they've come to the rescue and they do everything they can for the labour and trade union movement to take up principled stands on various issues. And that's what they do. They always deliver. In the ranks of the working class, in the ranks of the trade union movement, they are highly esteemed and highly respected for their commitment. But not just that. The firemen are the people who clean up after wars, who clean up after bombs, who defend us, who protect us when we're in danger. And Mark Rowe, National Officer of the FBU, straight away when I phoned him, jumped to help this demonstration, to facilitate a successful demonstration that is so powerful we shouldn't be ignored. So please give an absolutely warm welcome to Mark Rowe.
Wow, thank you, Rosie. So, mate, I hope that the photographs published of this demonstration will be widely available to everyone, because it is absolutely fantastic, the view from up here. It is incredible. And if I was a councillor, if I was going to apply my trade selling arms, I would be very, very worried right now. And not one single person here is kidding that these weapons are for self-defense. You sell weapons, they'll be used. You buy weapons, you'll use them. History shows us the technological advances in the weapons of death are the precursors to invasion and repression of less military advanced countries and people. The Spanish Civil War in July 36 saw Germany sending in powerful air and armoured units to assist Franco and his nationalist forces. The war provided combat experience with the latest technology for the German military. That's how it works. New weapons require new targets, new victims. In Iraq, they tested the latest advances on the people of Iraq in shock and awe. What a disgraceful title to put on the destruction of people. They manufacture them to use them, they trade them to use them. In stopping the arms fair going ahead, every person here will be directly saving lives. If they are allowed to meet, people will die. The arms trade fuels conflicts all over the world. Liverpool must play no part in facilitating a meeting of the merchants of death. We must not seek to build the economy and infrastructure of our city by destroying the economy and infrastructure of other people's cities. They meet in air conditioned, brightly lit, sanitized conference facilities. But meeting in those environments cannot hide the grubby nature of what they are meeting for. They should be made to meet in the desolation of what their trade has caused. Amid the rubble of people's homes, amongst the shattered limbs and lifeless corpses that result from their trade. If they meet in those surroundings, maybe they'll think twice about the consequences of their trade. If the council of this city will not stop the arms fair going ahead, then we will. Solidarity to all people in conflict.
Thanks, Mark, and thanks to Paul and Lee, who were the other two firemen who came down who's left. I wanted them to be here as well. We gave them an applause as well. So thank you to them, please, Mark. Our next speaker, except for the interference of the national, the NEC of the Labour Party, may have been the mayor of Liverpool. She was definitely the choice of Jeremy Corbyn. She was endorsed by a number of trade unions. She was seen as a danger. She has done loads of work in mothers' protection of children in the war zone. She's a founding member of Liverpool Supporting Grenfell. And I think we have to give full marks for the work that she has continued on Grenfell by keeping that issue alive on a monthly basis on respect of the burnt out church. Please welcome Anna Rodri.
Thank you. I'm just going to say about Jeremy, I was just pulling his line saying, you're now an honorary scout, so he said it's the best accolade he's ever had in his life just before he left. Loves the city, loves our people, as I do as well. Liverpool is a city of sanctuary, a humanitarian city, and a city where every child matters, so long as it's not a child from another country. And yet we have the arms fair coming here in October. How can a city that professes to champion human rights and align ourselves with this atrocity? It's absolutely disgraceful. Mother's protection of children in war zones. We don't stand with the manufacturers, the sellers, or the buyers of arms that destroy children's and families' lives globally. We stand with the child. And we need to remember that the children are the most vulnerable in this city and in this country. The very same city where we have people fleeing to be protected from war globally. Over half of the civilians killed by landmines and explosive remnants of the war are children. More than 400 million lives in countries affected by violent conflict are forcibly displaced, orphaned and forced to seek sanctuary in cities just like this. We have many of the children here in this city seeking sanctuary. What a monumental betrayal of their trust in us. Mothers of Protection of Children in War Zones will continue to work with governments, NGOs, faith leaders, multi-faith leaders, and parents, global parents and corporate parents to make sure that our children have safe passage and are looked after when they arrive on our shores. It's a despicable situation that we even consider having the arms fair in this city. Every other city has done their damnedest to keep them at bay. And the fact that we're having to come together here today and protest about something that should never ever have been allowed is just an insight into the direction of travel that we're travelling in. It's thanks to the people who've turned up today to protest and your moral compass that keeps us on the right path, that we will win through and we will have our way and we will send the arms fair packing back to whence they came. Solidarity with Liverpool. Thank you.
I'm really pleased to introduce our next speaker, Merseyside Pensioners Association is the most militant pensioners association we can find in this country. And Julie Lyon-Taylor is chair of that, and she's one of the organisers of this demonstration today. So please welcome Julie.
I stand here as a citizen of Liverpool. I was born and bred in Liverpool, and I was born into the mantra, never vote Tory. But I now feel ashamed of this, because this city wants to host an arms fair. But when I think again, I will stop my shame and think, well, no, I'm proud. I'm proud because, councillors, listen to this. We never give up. Did we give up on Hillsborough? No. Did we give up over the Shrewsbury pickets? No. And who came out on top at the end? The Hillsborough people and the Shrewsbury pickets people. And we pledge now that we will continue to fight what they're planning to do. On May Day, the May Day demonstration, I stood over there and I made a plea to our councillors. I said, you know, behind your back here, you've got a backbone. And it's about time you started building your backbone to fight back against this slur on our city. And you know what? It's quite interesting. We've got a lot of things about, oh, well, we might get the whip taken off us if we vote against this. Well, here's some news. I had the whip taken off me years ago as a councillor because I wouldn't vote for Council House rents to go up. Jeremy Corbyn had the whip taken off him. And where is Jeremy Corbyn and me? We're still here. We're still fighting. We still want to change. And quite frankly, what is more important, losing the whip or stopping the murder of people and the murder of children through this arms fair? It fades into insignificance, the whip, when you compare the results of stopping the arms fair going ahead. So I'm appealing to our councillors, be strong, be tough, stand up, recognise what is right, recognise what our culture in this city is. Our culture is a culture for peace. Our culture is one of bravery, of fighting for justice to the bitter end. And we will continue this fight. And rest assured, the pensioners will be there in the middle of that fight and at the forefront of that fight until we win this one.
Hello, before I announce the next speaker, I'd just like to pass on a message of solidarity from my union PCS National Executive Committee, and a big thank you to the PCS Samba Band who have been here supporting this today. I'm also sending a message of solidarity from my comrades in the Momentum National Coordinating Group and from local comrades in Liverpool Momentum. Now, the next speaker is Hyper Alkanshali from the Elderly Community.
Hi everyone, I'm just absolutely amazed how many people actually turned up. So I'm a proud member of the Liverpool Young community, and the reason I'm here today is to amplify the voices of my country who have suffered due to the neglect of this arms fair. So the weapons that are getting sold inside the military, who use these weapons on my country to destroy the infrastructure and the livelihoods. So over 80 companies have actually deployed military equipment to export to Saudi Arabia at more than 350 UK locations. As a result of these attacks, thousands of innocent lives have been lost, and the world is in the grip of the world's worst humanitarian crisis. Just a few examples of the companies that are coming to the arms fair in Liverpool that use these weapons against innocent civilians are the BAA Systems, which is a key partner in the £1 billion contract, which profits off torture. The UK has actually confirmed that they use UK-built weapons in Saudi for the Typhoon and the Tornado on Yemen. They also confirmed that the MBDA missiles are used on Yemen. Another company is the Hidden Technologies company, which manufactures themselves surveillance intelligence, and the UK Arms Project Unit actually permitted to expand its business in Saudi Arabia, which uses tracking technology. And Rolls-Royce also produces the weapons used on Yemen. They're on the site just for Saudi knows. So not only is Yemen facing the world's worst humanitarian crisis in the world, it's also suffering from COVID-19, famine, starvation, cholera, and many more diseases as a result of these wars. Children are getting brought up and born in these situations and thinking this is the way of life. Imagine if you were in Yemen and every day you were fearing for your lives and the lives of your loved ones on a daily basis. Children shouldn't be harmed as a result of this council's decision. So I ask you when I say, join me when I say, hands off Yemen, stop Al Saudi. Hands off Yemen! Hands off Yemen! Hands off Yemen! Thank you so much.
Thank you. And our next speaker is Hameen Ahmad, the Palestinian Scouser.
Hello everyone, thank you so much for turning out today. So as Andrew introduced me, my name is Hameen and I'm Palestinian, born and raised in Liverpool. And to be honest guys, I'm appalled. I'm absolutely appalled. This is nothing that we stand for as a city. Arms fair, killing, injustice, merchants of death. Like these titles that are getting given like by the sentence, not something that we're used to. And it needs to come to an end. I can't lie, it really does. I'm thinking about it now. We've had so many cases where injustice was handed to us, like Hillsborough. What did we do with the sun? What did we do with it? We abolished it. It's not welcome here. It's really not. 96 lives gone but never forgotten. And we've abolished the sun. Margaret Thatcher, is she, when she was here, was she ever welcome? No. So why are we doing this with the arms fair? If the council isn't cancelling it, then it's up to us as a city to stop their doors from opening and to tell them that this arms fair is not welcome in my Liverpool. Being a Palestinian, all you have known is rockets, bombs, planes, tanks. So why is this being a normality? Why is this something that the council is encouraging? We are creating refugees, asylum seekers. They're coming to Liverpool. But what are we doing? We're supporting their killing. We're supporting them to come back. By I say we, I don't mean me obviously, but I'm just saying the council that are doing all of this. And it's just not right at all. It is not right. Arms are not meant for killing, they're meant for hugging. And that's something that we need to put in mind. And I just want to say, once and for all, free Palestine, free Yemen, Syria, Europa, and Afghanistan, and every other country that is held under some sort of occupation due to these arms. Thank you.
Absolutely wonderful. Just before we go to our very last speaker, who's the absolutely amazing Kamal Hawash, Chair of the Palestine Solidarity Campaign. Don't give them loose, isn't it? I just want to mention that on October the 3rd, the Tory Party Conference, which is only down the road in Manchester, there's a People's Assembly. So I hope you can come along there and help to fight the Tories. And I'm just sorry today that this isn't a demonstration against to protect the National Health Service. These are the sort of demonstrations we should be having. Fighting the Tories, not fighting our own council to stop something that's been on an affront to our city. That's what we should be doing. I just think it's an absolute waste of energy and waste of time. We shouldn't have to be doing this. We should be fighting the Tories. So please, welcome a Brummy. I hate to tell you, I've been told not to say it, but I'm sorry, I'm a Liverpoolian. He supports Manchester United. But he's an absolutely tremendous speaker on behalf of the Palestinian Solidarity Campaign. Please welcome Kamala Harris.
Thank you very much indeed. Yes, I plead guilty of being a Man U supporter, but my son has a Mo Salah shirt. I hope that makes up for it. And I'm sorry with Antonians, he doesn't wear one of the other shirts. Friends, thank you very much for staying until now. I know Jeremy was meant to be at the end, so I'm particularly pleased you stayed to hear me speak. I've come all the way from Birmingham, but I am originally from Jerusalem. Both of my parents were born in Jerusalem before Israel was created. I'm sad to say that about 20 years ago, I had to bury my father in Birmingham because the Israelis would not allow me to take him to bury him in the city of his birth. But I also wanted to mention Jerusalem in another sense. In 2014, when Israel was bombing Gaza, I happened to be in Jerusalem. And one of my young relatives, a 12-year-old, had been watching the news and came to me. He knew I came from the UK. And he said, "Uncle, is it true that Britain sells powerful weapons to Israel to kill the people in Gaza?" What do you say? Yes, it does. And when the UK says we have strong arms controls policies, I remember a question being raised in the House of Parliament to the then Foreign Office Minister, Alistair Burt. Can you tell us and guarantee that Israel isn't using weapons sold by Britain to oppress the Palestinians? He said no. Why? Because apparently they do a risk assessment in advance of selling weapons, and Israel gets a pass. Well, where do the weapons that kill Palestinians come from? United States, from Israel itself, from other countries. But even in 2018, while the Palestinians were protesting peacefully in Gaza at the fence, Britain sold special rifles that could be used by snipers. The same question again. Can you guarantee that the weapons were not used against Palestinians? No, we do a risk assessment. Well, it's about time you bloody change your risk assessment. Because it's clear that Israel bombs the people of Gaza regularly. You saw what happened in May. Just imagine two things. First of all, I've got to stop for 1 second. There's quiet because there are no drones. The people of Gaza hear the drones buzzing almost 24 hours a day because Israel uses them both for surveillance but also for shooting at targets. The other thing was that Israel destroyed some of the highest tower blocks in Gaza. What was the pretense that it used? It said that they were being used by the armed groups in Gaza. In fact, one of them had most of the media, including Al Jazeera and other stations, and they were just simply transmitting what was happening. But they brought them down. And they say, of course, they're very careful. So they phoned the owner of the building an hour before and told him to tell the people who were in the building to leave because they were going to bomb it, and they did. And they brought down lots of towers. So these weapons that are sold down the road, will be advertised down the road, are used to cause real death and destruction. And anyone who thinks that simply throwing a bomb in an empty area in Gaza is Israel being really careful about the people of Gaza is dreaming. If they thought that their own children would be wouldn't be terrorized by the sound of bombs falling on Gaza, then you would believe everything the Israelis tell you. But it isn't just Israel. We heard about Yemen. We hear about Syria. These weapons are made to kill. That is the purpose of making these weapons. And it's only when politicians realize that if they happen to be in harm's way, they would face the same obliteration, because that's what happens from these weapons that they cause. So it's really important that we make sure that our cities, our towns, are not used as a place to advertise these weapons that eventually kill people. I thank the people of Liverpool for coming out today. I thank the people who organized this particular protest and these various opportunities to speak. You are wonderful for coming out. You are leading your council, and I hope that they will listen carefully and that this particular exhibition will be cancelled, and if not, they will think twice in the future, 3 times, 4 times before saying yes. Thank you so much for coming out, and have a safe journey home.
I thank you once again for being a Manchester United supporter, Corbyn. So let's just finish on a note of determination. A note of determination to keep up the fight. I think all of us must focus on ways, means, tactics to stop this they're going ahead. Write to everybody, write to the Echo, get onto the radio, go to your trade unions, go to your whatever organisation. Responsibilities, the political body, the political representation of the people of this city. So we appeal to them from this meeting, go and cancel it. Better to break the war than to start a war. So, one more thing. The next step is the 22nd of September. Wherever this council meeting is going to be, and the next date after that will be the October Arms Day if we haven't cancelled it by then. So let's be determined, let's plan, let's work hard, and let's stop this Arms Day. And everybody, thank you for coming and go home safely. Thank you.